Hello, and welcome to the Feeling Good podcast, where you can learn powerful techniques to change the way you feel. I am your host, Dr. Rhonda Borowski, and joining me here in the Murrieta studio is Dr. David Burns. Dr. Burns is a pioneer in the development of cognitive behavioral therapy and the creator of the new T.E.A.M therapy. He is the author of Feeling Good, which has sold over 5 million copies in the United States and has been translated into over 30 languages. His latest book, Feeling Great, contains powerful new techniques that make rapid recovery possible for many people struggling with depression and anxiety. Dr. Burns is currently an emeritus adjunct professor of clinical psychiatry at Stanford University School of Medicine.
Hello, Rhonda.
Hello, David.
Matt. Hello, Matt.
Hey, everybody.
Yeah. And welcome to all our listeners around the country and around the world to episode 281. Today, we're going to do another Ask David with our special guest, Matt May. Hi, Matt. And I thought I'd start off by reading a podcast endorsement about our last podcast with Matt May, which was episode 276, where we talked about why are people the way they are and other topics. And William wrote us, "Very beautiful as usual. Thanks a lot."
Oh, lovely.
Yeah.
Good to get that positive feedback.
Yeah, and very well deserved. And the podcast before that, which was episode 271, was on the Brain User's Guide to Team CBT with Mark Noble. We got a lot of endorsements about that. Like Ed wrote, "A physical scientist endorsing and embracing a psychological science, a very educational and informal session. This was a great first podcast for 2022. And I'm looking forward to being your 5 millionth download."
That is really nice. Thank you, both of you. And yes, I think we'll probably hit that in June, maybe a little sooner. And thank you all for supporting us. We don't do any paid advertising on this. It's all volunteer work. And so you're our really only marketing arm. And I asked to tell all your friends about the podcast if you like it, because that's how it spreads, by word of mouth. And sure enough, this month, we might have our biggest 1 month download ever. We have to wait and see. But it could top 130,000 downloads this month.
Wow, awesome.
And so that's thanks to everybody. The last time we were approaching this was when we had all that PR, when Feeling Great came out. So it was on everybody else's podcast, and that brought a lot of extra listeners in. And then it fell off a bit. And then for the last 3-4 months or some period of time, just been building. So thank you, everybody. We really appreciate that.
Yeah. Oh, and I forgot that today this podcast is coming out on February 14th. So I want to wish everybody a very happy Valentine's Day.
Yeah, happy Valentine's Day, everybody.
Happy Valentine's, yes.
Yeah. Okay, well, let's jump into the first question of our Ask David. This is
relevant to Valentine's Day.
Oh, good.
It's all about loves and needs and stuff.
Oh, cool. This is from Sanjay, and he asks, "Dear Dr. Burns, I thank you for pointing out, quote, dramatic shift in the footnotes, and it has given me immense satisfaction."
Just by way of clarification, this person was listening to the 2-part thing about I need a baby type of thing.
Oh, uh-huh.
And
with Carly Zankman.
Yeah, with Carly. Yes, Dr. Carly. She was so awesome and beautiful there, but she kind of clinged to the idea that she needed to be a mother to feel happy and fulfilled, and didn't want to back off of that. And then so I felt, she loved it. It was an excellent podcast. Jill was brilliant, but I felt we were falling a little short there because she continued to think that this was a need. And then afterwards, I sent her an email. I sent it to Jill first to make sure it wouldn't be offensive or anything. And Jill thought it was nice and talked about that we sometimes convert strong wants into needs. Because we strongly want something, we tell ourselves, I need it, and that there can be a downside to that need proposal. that formulation, and if you see it as a strong need, it becomes the downside kind of disappears. And Carly really liked that. That allowed her to kind of shift over. And this person was referring to that.
Okay. Okay. Well, thank you for explaining that. So Sanjay wrote, my learning from this is that low-level solution remains just a first aid only because it is still in the category of need and has not yet moved into the category of want.
And what that means, again, I have to translate a little here and get Matt to chime in, is that in a low-level solution, you find happiness because you get what you want. So, for example, in the Feeling Great, I talked about the session with Melanie, and she was afraid that people would disapprove of her because she had 2 failed marriages in the past. And she discovered during the podcast that people didn't disapprove of her. That, contrary, once she opened up about her flaws, her shortcomings, she got an outpouring of love. And that made her high. But that's a low-level solution because she's getting what she wants, which is approval. And the self-defeating belief is, I need approval to feel happy and fulfilled. And then we went on and did a feared fantasy. And what's the date of today's podcast?
February 14th of 2022.
Oh, okay, yeah. Well, by this time, the thing on self-defeating beliefs, the workshop with Jill, will have happened already. But in a high-level solution, you find happiness even if you don't get what you want. And we did a feared fantasy with Melanie, and she met the person from hell who was saying, I disapprove of you, I judge you because you've had 2 failed marriages. And then she suddenly realized the monster had no teeth. And that's a high-level solution where you can find happiness even if you don't get what you want.
Oh, okay. So Sanjay continues. Anyway, I'd like to say that was very interesting explanation, David. Thanks.
Thank you.
So a further question comes to mind. What is the process or formula to keep the deepest desires of ours from not entering into needs and remaining in the want zone? And yet we can work with the highest passion and love to achieve them. Or in other words, how do you keep your biggest desire of your
app? Yeah, like the desire in the want. So explanation. I was saying that I'm working on this app, this Feeling Good app, and I really want it to be a success, but I don't need it to be a success.
Oh, I see.
And that takes all the stress out of it. It's just a fun, creative thing, and if it helps a lot of people, fantastic. And if it's a total fiasco, it's been a great adventure. You know, I don't want to tell myself I need it to be successful because I don't need it to be successful.
Cool. I see that. Okay. How do you keep your biggest desire of your app in the want zone and still maintain the highest level passion to achieve it? What is the process to reach that stage? You have already given us the answer to this and shown us the way towards enlightenment via the 4 great deaths of the self. Still, if you would like to say something more, that would help us to grasp the process of keeping the desires in the want only. Warm regards, Sanjay.
That's a fantastic question. And fortunately, we're with somebody today who has a mind-blowing answer.
And that would be Matt.
Oh, no. Well, this is a great question. I agree. And I think I feel a little worried about answering it in a very straightforward way. I think what Sanjay is asking for is like a recipe or a formula, like he or she says, what is the process to reach that stage? And I have a little worry about thinking that the process would be exactly the same for every person. And one thing I like about the team model is that it's we're really treating people, not thoughts. And so we'd really want to understand this individual situation in life very clearly, and also have a lot of specificity on the moment in time where they were struggling with needs, what is the complete thought there for them. so that we could tailor the treatment to them and select the methods that would be most helpful, say on a recovery circle. Mm-hmm. So that's one thought there. But yeah, I think this is a big issue here that our needs create all kinds of suffering in multiple different domains. If I think I need to be better, I'll probably be feeling inadequate. Or if I think that I need a cigarette, I'll probably be hooked on that. Or if I need someone to love me, I'll be in this sort of chasing role in my relationships and force people to reject me. If I think anything you attach to a need is, like David was saying, we do that even when it's really just a want, and that the want may be very precious to us. And we imagine that if we turn that into a need, maybe we'll be more motivated and more likely to get it. So there'll be all these perceived advantages to maintaining this idea that we need something. Maybe it'll help me focus on getting what I think that I need. And so that might be a first step, is to really come to terms with the motivational piece. Why would I want to tell myself that I need this would be a question. Mm-hmm. And can we talk back to those? When I was thinking about this question, I tried to imagine a situation where I wouldn't want to change my needs into wants. Like, let's say I was the only person who could walk after a horrible accident. And I'd be telling myself, I need to rescue the people on this bus. It probably wouldn't occur to me to change that into a want. However, I might feel better. I could just play around with the language in my mind. Instead of saying I need to save them, which could help me focus on that task, I could also say I want to save them. Maybe I can save them. There's a chance I'll be able to save them and have more of a feeling of excitement and keep that motivation alive. So you could play with the language there. But in a different scenario, maybe this person is feeling anxious. They think, oh, I need
achievement
or something like that. And some type of experiment to prove that you actually don't need that thing to be happy, I think is one way to solidify it. That'd be one method to take in there. But there would be a lot of different approaches, a lot of different methods that we would custom pick for the specific thought in the recovery circle, the need kind of thought.
Yeah. By the way, just tell people they don't know what a recovery circle is, and it's a circle. And it's a special kind of circle with a lot of arrows coming out of it. And in the middle of the circle, you can put a negative thought, like I'm a inferior human being, or even a self-defeating belief like I need love to feel happy and fulfilled. And then there's all these arrows coming out of that circle, and the arrows are boxes, and each box you can put the name of one of the more than 100 techniques that we use in T.E.A.M to challenge negative thoughts or self-defeating beliefs. And so if you put like 15 methods there around your recovery circle, you'll have a lot of ways to defeat a negative thought, because someone might think I should always try to be perfect. I've had perfectionistic tendencies myself. Many of my colleagues have them. I've treated tons of people with perfectionism. And, the thing that's helpful for Ralph might not be helpful for Farzam or Tricia or whatever. So we use a lot of different techniques and try to individualize it. And you can only achieve enlightenment at a specific moment. You don't achieve it in some general way. And if it's a moment when you're upset, then you can use T.E.A.M and crush your distorted thoughts and get rid of your negative feelings, and often catapult yourself into enlightenment. Mm-hmm. But there are 4 specific tools that often are a starting place to give you something to hang your hat on when you have a self-defeating belief that you're trying to crush or change. And the first is what you mentioned, Matt, to formalize it as a cost benefit analysis. What are the advantages of telling myself I need love, or I need approval, or I need great achievement to feel happy and to be a worthwhile human being. And then you can list all of the advantages of that belief. And there's many advantages of telling yourself you need love, or I need a baby to feel happy and fulfilled, or I need great achievement to feel happy and fulfilled. Well, that belief will motivate you to work your butt off. And then when you do achieve, you'll feel worthwhile. So you'll feel happy, and people will admire you because people love a winner. They admire people who were successful. There's tons of benefits to these things, but there's also a downside. What are the disadvantages? And you can list them on a piece of paper or on a cost benefit analysis, and then weigh them on a 100-point scale. What's greater, the benefits or the costs, the price I pay for this belief? And I never try to help a patient unless the disadvantages are greater. And if the advantages of the belief are greater, then you don't have a problem. It's working for you. Mm-hmm. And by the way, the show notes are often elaborate, somewhat elaborate. I'm not bragging. I'm just saying there's quite a bit often to the show notes, and including this question. And so you can read on my website or wherever you get your podcast, read the show notes. You'll learn a lot more. And the second step is the semantic technique, just to reword the belief so that you keep all of the benefits and get rid of the costs, the disadvantages of that belief. And then the third thing is, as you said, to do an experiment. Do I really, is it true that I need love to feel happy and fulfilled? Is it true that I need achievement to feel happy and fulfilled? Whatever your belief happens to be, to test it. And then finally, the fourth technique I always use is the feared fantasy, to go into an Alice in Wonderland nightmare world, where you confront your fear. You meet somebody who has tremendous achievement. This is an imaginary nightmare world. And this person, let's say you're basing your self-esteem on your achievements. This person has tremendous achievement and is telling you that he or she feels superior to others because of this, and is judging you and other people because he or she has accomplished so much. And you suddenly see this is, as the Buddha so often called it, horseshit. To think that people are better than other human beings because they've achieved a lot. They're better at whatever they're achieving at, but that's not the same as being a superior human being. There's no such thing as a superior human being. Superior achievements can exist. Superior skills can exist. Inferior skills can exist, but superior or inferior human beings do not exist. And but those are just some starter tools.
Yeah, and I want to reiterate, David, that you've written really a beautiful explanation of this in greater detail in the show notes. So I want to encourage people, just like you did, to look at the show notes. Even though both of you just said really helpful things. Yeah,
thanks, Rhonda.
Okay,
David, would there be any particular book that you've written that Sanjay might refer to, like 10 Days to Self-Esteem or the Feeling Good Handbook?
Yeah, the Feeling Good Handbook is pretty good on self-defeating beliefs and how to modify them. I think there's some of that too in Feeling Good. Like I think there's a chapter in there, Dare to Be Average, on perfectionism.
Yeah,
and certainly in the new book, Feeling Great, the positive reframing is all about first. I mean, there's dozens of techniques in that book, but the positive reframing is always about seeing the beauty in the thing you're trying to change and sell yourself on not changing it. And once you really are sold on not changing it, then recovery is often just a stone's throw away, and it paradoxically becomes much easier to change it. So, any of those I think could be really, really helpful.
Mm-hmm. I can imagine versions of this need thought where cognitive flooding might help. Like, what if I don't get what I want? And just to focus on imagining worst case scenarios, or response prevention. If I think I need to go check the lock for the 5th time just to not do that thing. I think we have a powerful set of tools we could bring to these need thoughts. But
yeah, So from that point of view, when panic attacks might be good too, because it's on all the different forms of anxiety and and the value of many ways to crush those thoughts and beliefs that cause panic attacks and worrying and phobias and public speaking anxiety and shyness and all the rest.
Okay, anything else before I go on to the next question?
No, the next one's about nuclear war and hating your political enemies and having them hate you and all the stuff going on in the world today. So this is going to be a good one.
Yeah. Okay, so hi, Dr. Burns. First off, thank you so much for your podcast and books. They've helped me immensely grow, and I'm forever appreciative. Recently, I've been hearing statements like, American democracy may not be around in 10 to 15 years. America's becoming a totalitarian state, and we're heading to nuclear war from both sides of the political spectrum. All of these statements make me very anxious to hear. I know that thoughts create feelings, so even if something is true, like the threat of nuclear war, or that voting rights are being infringed upon, etc., is there a way we can think upon these issues without becoming anxious or depressed over them? Thank you so much, Vanessa.
Well, there's a crystal clear, mind-blowing, and tremendously tender and inspiring answer to this question. And Dr. Matthew May will provide that, and Rhonda will brilliantly comment on what Matt says.
I doubt it, but I'll say something here and see how it goes over. Well, first of all, I would suggest that we see the beauty in any individual who has these concerns, and that they're caring more than just about themselves. They're caring about society and the future, and probably people that have never been born and they'll never meet. They're caring at a deep level and have huge hearts. So maybe some positive reframing would be in order.
For Vanessa.
For what's that?
For Vanessa, who wrote this question. What a beautiful person she is.
Yeah. And then some other questions around agenda setting might be helpful. Like, what are there reasons to maintain anxiety and depression when we think about these thoughts? There will be a nuclear war. We'll have a dictator. So these kinds of things. And could that be helpful to worry? And if so, how much? Like, how much anxiety and worry or depression do we need to feel in order to optimize the outcome in the future? And if, again, I mean, we're kind of repeating ourselves, but if there's some reason you believe that you need to feel anxious, like maybe you'll be more persuasive when you're talking to people. If there's real fear in your voice, they'll know that you take this issue seriously, and maybe they'll listen too. There could be all kinds of advantages to maintaining this anxiety. And again, if you can talk back to that and convince yourself, no, I really do want to change that, then probably things like intense cognitive flooding, like imagining worst case scenarios, getting to a place of acceptance that these things can happen, that the human race probably is mortal, not only individuals, but we have a limited amount of time. And we might then appreciate what we have more and feel more grateful or more curious. What could we actually do to further our existence and make the world a slightly better place for the next generation?
That's a great answer. My answer to this is real short and simple, is that for every negative emotion, there's a healthy and an unhealthy version. Healthy fear is not the same as neurotic anxiety. Healthy sadness or grief is not the same as clinical depression. Healthy remorse when you hurt somebody you love is not the same as neurotic guilt. And healthy anger is not the same as unhealthy anger. And the one important difference is that unhealthy versions like excessive anxiety always result from distorted thoughts, never from valid thoughts. And healthy negative feelings always result from valid negative thoughts. And so if you write down what you're telling yourself what are your negative thoughts, that can help you figure out if your negative feelings are healthy and appropriate. As you point out, Matt, sometimes there's nothing wrong with having negative feelings. It's a part of life. We have real dangers. My wife is the brains in our family, and she tells me, and she's almost never wrong about this stuff, is that the human race is not going to survive. That the forces of hatred and darkness are very powerful, and the chances of extinction through global warming, through nuclear war, through hatred are very real, and that's something that I think is very worth being concerned about and attending to. But at the same time, if your negative feelings are creating problems for you and robbing you of happiness and intimacy, like right now, I mean, we're talking about terrible things that could happen to the human race, yet I'm feeling great joy to be talking to you, Rhonda, and you, Matt, and to be talking to our audience. What a wonderful privilege this is. At the same time, I feel great joy. So I don't know if that adds anything to what you already said, Matt, but that's kind of my take on it.
Can I just add one thing to both of your brilliant comments?
Yeah.
We often talk about anxiety as being motivating when it's at a level that it's not causing us pain and suffering. So if there's a way that, Vanessa and other people who have these thoughts, I mean, sometimes I have them too, could dial down the anxiety so that they have just enough maybe to motivate them, and perhaps motivate them into some kind of action, or like Matt said, doing something to make the world a bit of a better place, or a safer place, or a healthier place, then maybe that's the benefit of these thoughts.
Yeah, absolutely. Well stated.
I like that idea, Rhonda. Yeah. Doing worry breaks. You could set aside what percentage of your day would you like to spend contemplating this and worrying about it, and do that. Yeah.
For me, I like, if I was just all worried and depressed all the time, I wouldn't be doing podcasts with you guys. I wouldn't be working on my app. I'm so tremendously excited, could be relieving depression and anxiety for people all over the world. Our beta testing of the app already indicates it's outperforming human therapists. Even in one day, we get bigger changes in depression, anxiety, and anger and happiness and that you can get in months of treatment with antidepressants and all current forms of psychotherapy. And we're going to be making the app even better than it is already. And this is thrilling to me. This is a dream of mine for 40 years. And maybe that will, I'm just doing what I can do rather than ruminating about things that maybe I can't do.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Anything else before we go on to the next question?
No.
Okay.
I think we're doing good. I mean, but then I'm biased because I think you're both fantastic.
One last thing is, like, if again we would generate a recovery circle, this awesome circle device for this problem, and you could put a lot on there, and like Socratic technique, or what about the hidden emotion for anxiety?
Oh yeah, right. That's a good one. Uh-huh. Like it depends on what the thought is. Downward arrow. Examine the evidence. There's tons of let's define terms. Be specific. There's just tons of techniques. But the first one is always the positive reframing is and agenda setting or assessment of resistance. Is this something you would be willing to, and that you want to reduce your feelings? And if you don't want to reduce your feelings, then you don't have a problem. But if you're excessively bound up, it could be a hidden emotion for this person too, getting anxious about the world when you have a problem with a loved one that you're denying, that you're not dealing with.
That's what I was wondering, or feeling angry at people who are destroying the world, angry at politicians who are building nuclear warheads or becoming dictators and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And how do we express that anger in a healthy way?
Yeah, right. I love that.
Which, like you said, seems like healthy, realistic anger to have.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
You guys keep talking. I'm going to pick this up. It might be my wife.
Okay. Matt, are you ready for the next one?
I'm in a live podcast right now. Okay. Yeah. Bye. Yeah, okay. It was her because she whenever she calls to me, it's kind of an emergency because of her. I was going to say knee transplant. It wasn't a knee transplant; it was a leg transplant.
Leg transplant.
No, she had a knee replacement, and so I dote on her, and because it's hard, and I'm proud of her for what she's going through so bravely.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I appreciate that you interrupted the podcast to take care of her. That shows how much you love her.
Thank you. Thank you. It does. I do.
Yeah. Okay, here's our third question. Hey, Doc. Very glad I ran into your work. I started with a video and have been reading and listening to your stuff for a couple of days now. I have been diagnosed with obsessive compulsive disorder, pure obsession. I struggle with intrusive thoughts. I have had a lot of trouble exposing myself to the thoughts in order to face them. I've tried writing a narrative of my fears. I just can't seem to get the right exposure. A couple examples I get stuck on. I don't believe in God, or I don't believe enough, or that maybe there isn't a God. And then I get stuck on, what if I go crazy? I wish there was a dirty sink I could go touch or something tangible I could face. Do you have any suggestions? Cliff, which is a disguised name.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So you're first up to bat here.
Take it away,
you're
Matt.
Our lead-off batter.
Okay. As
Get
long
on
as,
base.
as long
I'll
as
try
you'll
to
clean up
you
whatever
over
mess
to
I make
second, and Rhonda will hit you a double and bring you to home base.
Yes.
Yeah. So first of all, OCD is just an awful experience where you have all these intrusive, and in this case, just it's the thoughts. There's no compulsion to do anything. But one thing I always have in my mind when working on OCD is oftentimes we have to accept a lesser agenda than what we would probably wish for. We would probably just wish that we wouldn't ever have any of these intrusive thoughts ever again. And what I would offer is slightly different from that. I don't know how to control the brain at that level, but I would be able to help people just not be as bothered by these negative thoughts when they're having them. And often people won't want that because they just want to get rid of the thoughts altogether. But if someone is open to that agenda, then all the same kind of things apply, where we'd want to look at the beauty in these thoughts and what's good, what it says is good about this individual who's having them, the downsides of not having these concerns about going crazy, or kind of thoughts about God, and what does it say that's really good about them, that this is sort of a pattern in their thinking. And then if they really persuade themselves that this is something they want to be less bothered by, less upset about, then we would have all kinds of cool tools to offer them. If it's like you could start with simple things like just clicking on a golf counter every time you notice a thought like that. You could do.
Now, just to clarify that, so they know what you're talking about,
okay, yeah.
You can get golfers have a wristwatch. Maybe they do it on your cell phone now, but that every time they take a shot, they tap it, and the number goes up one on the dial. And so one technique, which is one of 40 powerful anti-anxiety, anti-OCD techniques, would be to every time you have a thought like that, you just count it. Now you've done what you have to do, and you continue doing what you were doing. And then at the end of the day, you put the total number on your calendar, like you might have 95 intrusive thoughts, and you agree to do that for 3 weeks. 3 to 4 weeks, no technique is guaranteed to work. This is one of dozens of fantastic techniques you can use for OCD. For some people in the third week, the number of thoughts starts decreasing and goes down to zero. And so that's the whole idea a bit behind that technique.
Yeah, that's helpful, David. And I think you actually have a video too of treating someone who had the thought, I'll crack up and go crazy, or...
Oh, yeah.
Is that true? Yeah.
Well, I have one of a similar thing. What if I have a heart attack and die? But it's the same thing with what if I go crazy? You can do an experiment there and see if you can go crazy. Try hard to go crazy. Right. Rather than trying to control that thought or to avoid that thought. You confront the monster, and then you discover that the monster has no teeth. I've had a lot of people. I said, suppose you went crazy right now in the office? What would that look like? And the patient might say, I'd be screaming and pounding my head against the wall and rolling around on the floor. And I say, well, go for it. See if you can drive yourself crazy. Try hard. And if it's terrifying to the person, it's incredibly powerful because you'll discover you can't go crazy no matter how hard you try. Now, if you're unwilling to do the experiment, then you're in love with your symptoms and they're not going to change, at least not if I'm your shrink. But if you do the experiment, it's very difficult not to make a tremendous project. I'll turn it back to you.
That's great. That's a great response. I think if it really is a fear and a phobia, the people will instinctively avoid it, and addressing the reasons why they would avoid it prior to doing the exercise can ensure that they'll dive in with both feet and have a better result. If they go halfway, they can kind of get re-traumatized and they'll quit early and not have the result. So yeah, the agenda setting is really important here to make sure that there's a willingness there to do those exercises wholeheartedly.
Yeah, and then you have trust with your therapist or whoever you're working with, and you're really willing to go for the gold. And sometimes the therapist has to push you too at the last minute. And if you're getting perfect empathy scores from your patient, the patient likes you and trusts you, then you have that currency to push when it's necessary. Because at the moment of cure, 99% of patients will intensely resist. And if you have that connection with the patient, then you can push them to do the thing they have to do to be cured.
Matt, can I ask you a question? And David?
Sure. Mm-hmm.
Do you ever suggest, like after you've gone through the whole team model and you've gone through agenda setting and now you're in the methods phase, that somebody have replacement thoughts? Like they say, I don't believe in God or whatever Cliff was saying, or what if I go crazy? And that, do you ever suggest that they create a replacement thought? Like whenever I think, what if I go crazy? I'll replace that with a thought.
Yes, in fact, we have a tool for that, and it was actually created many years ago. It's called the Daily Mood Log, and you put the thought in a recovery circle, and then you have all these methods, and the whole idea is to crush that thought with the positive thought that's 100% true, and that reduces your belief in the negative thought to zero. Absolutely. That's called cognitive therapy, by the way. And I have two quickies here. Again, whenever someone has OCD, I'll think the hidden emotion model. In my book, When Panic Attacks, there goes David promoting his books again. Actually, I don't promote them very often. But When Panic Attacks, there's 40 techniques that you can use if you have OCD. And one of the great ones is the hidden emotion technique. Almost all OCD patients are exceptionally nice people, and there's something going on in your life that you're not dealing with, and it's not buried in the past, it's buried in the present. And you're upset with your marriage, with your job, you're angry with somebody about something, there's something you're shutting out of conscious awareness. And bringing that thing to conscious awareness and dealing with it will often cause rapid total elimination of symptoms. Not always. There's no single technique that's always going to work for everybody, but that's a huge one to consider. And also on the downward arrow, that you don't believe in God, I do a downward arrow technique. So, well, why is that upsetting to you? Suppose you don't believe in God, or maybe you'd also want to do some shame attacking exercises. Walk around the mall and tell 30 people, strangers, that, by the way, say, I often don't believe in God. How about you? Something like that. And I think you remember our session with Marilyn. And she was afraid she didn't believe in God. And I told her when I had a visitation from God, when I was jogging in Gladwin on the way home from the train station, and God came to me in a vision and said, I'd be very disappointed, David, if you believed in me. And I said, don't worry, big guy, I've got your back. And the whole thing is, you're being so serious that you don't believe in God. Well, God doesn't really care if you believe in God or not. To be honest with you, that might sound harsh, but it's true. God, is a God of humor, a God of compassion, and not some tyrannical entity there who's going to be terribly offended or upset, if you don't believe in God. And I'll shut up because I'm babbling again.
I really like that you brought up the hidden emotion, because that is such an important part of the treatment. You could almost imagine OCD as being our clue to ourselves that there's something brewing that we need to attend to. That we're not that we're hiding from ourselves and that we don't want to deal with.
Yeah.
And if we can figure out, well, what's going on in my life that I really don't want to be aware of or have to do or think about, then you can figure that out and then deal with that thing, do that thing.
By the way, there's tremendous resources for people who write questions that they're not utilizing. For example, if you go to my website, feelinggood.com, almost everything there is free. And there's a search function on every page. And if you type in hidden emotion technique, and if you type in OCD, you'll get whole podcasts just on the hidden emotion technique for OCD. And you get examples of a pathology resident who got OCD and he got a phobia to finishing his cadavers, dissecting his cadavers. Why? What's the hidden emotion? A young man who had a fantastic career in Philadelphia working at a major corporation. He was considered a prodigy, and he suddenly got OCD, and he thought he might murder his newborn baby, and other OCD symptoms that came from out of the blue. He was terrified. Well, why? And all of these were hidden emotion problems and many more. It's a fantastic technique. Of course, as you point out, Matt, exposure and response prevention are mandatory for anyone with OCD.
And if it's pure cognitive OCD, that's not a problem. Like, you could just do cognitive flooding. Just tell yourself the worried thoughts over and over again. Paradoxical magnification, blow them out of proportion. Worst case scenario.
Yeah.
Of cracking up and going crazy.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. That was that. Anything else? Because I have to take my wife to an appointment, we have to quit in 5 minutes here. So a little short today. It's probably a blessing, though, because we probably talk too much. There's one of us who does talk too much. But no. Any other closing thoughts on any of these three really excellent questions we had today?
I don't think so. Not for me. What about you, Matt?
I mean, I think we could always try some role play or, bring the methods to life in some way, but I can't think of what that would be exactly.
Yeah, let's see. Well, we could do externalization of voices on not believing in God.
That's a good one.
Okay.
And one of us can be the negative self and one can be the positive self. You want to be the positive self, Matt? And Rhonda and I will be the negative self?
I'm feeling more devilish. I think I would be the good in the role of the negative self.
Okay, I'll be the positive self and Rhonda can be the positive self.
Okay.
Go for
it. David, you should feel terrible about yourself. You don't believe in God.
Okay, I'll be pleased to. What time of day would you like me to feel terrible? And how long would you like me to feel terrible for?
Well, if you could just permanently feel that way until you do believe in God, I think that would be.
Oh, thank you for the wonderful suggestion. Let me consider that. No, I don't think so.
That was good. I like that.
Yeah.
Good role play.
That was easy for David.
Yeah. Could I talk to you for a minute, Matt?
Sure.
I understand you sometimes doubt your belief in God.
Very much so. Yes. I frequently wonder what that even is about or what it means. I'm pretty confused.
Well, I know what it means.
Oh, okay. I'd love to hear.
That you're a bad person.
I am a bad person in a lot of different ways. Gosh, now that you point that out, I didn't realize it.
Well, I believe in God like crazy. My belief is so powerful, it's more than 100%. And Rhonda's too. And we judge you.
Wow. I'm so impressed with your faith that you have such strong faith, you and Rhonda.
And what's the point of this? This is called the feared fantasy that we were just doing. What's the point of it, Matt? Because people say that sounds stupid, what they were just doing.
Sounds really intense. Like an intense attack on Matt.
Yeah, I think it's sort of a shame-busting exercise at one level, like to face our judgment or fear of judgment from others, and just to prove to ourselves we don't need to be afraid of someone who would judge us. That judgment is theirs to keep.
Right.
And Matt, you responded with 100% acceptance. Oh yeah, you're right. I am bad.
Oh, frequently.
And, and David,
I didn't used to be bad, but I've been taking bad lessons, and I'm so much happier now.
David's taught me a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. We gave you bad lessons. That's we literally did.
Yep.
And David, when you responded with specificity. Tell me exactly the time for me. Tell me with the time that I should have this thought, or
how long should I be
How long
upset?
should I have it?
Yeah. How long should I punish myself for every day? How many minutes?
Mm-hmm. That was also a style of acceptance.
Yeah. But we would need more details from this fellow, because everyone's unique. What are his specific negative thoughts? And then we could generate a recovery circle and come up with 20 or 30, killer techniques to crush the thought. But as you always point out, Matt, the first thing is the assessment of resistance or agenda setting, however you want to look at it. Is this something that you really want to change? Because all of our negative feelings, depression, anxiety, OCD, guilt, shame, whatever it is, show really awesome and wonderful things about us and our core values. And there are benefits to all of these negative symptoms, and sometimes they're totally appropriate. And once you list all of the positives and see all the really good reasons not to change, suddenly change becomes just a stone's throw away. And with that, I've got to run and help my beautiful and wonderful wife a little bit. And
we appreciate that you're doing that.
Yeah. And thank you, Rhonda. And thank you, Matt. It's always so peaceful working with you.
Oh, I love it.
That's a really good way to put it.
Experiences, and love to you all and to Melanie on Valentine's Day.
Oh yes, and love to all of you out there. We love you all and so much appreciate your hanging out with us for our weekly Feeling Good podcasts.
Bye.
Okay, bye everybody. We'll meet again soon and pick up where we left off. Okay,
sounds good.
Bye-bye.
This has been another episode of the Feeling Good podcast. For more information, visit Dr. Burns' website at feelinggood.com, where you will find the show notes under the podcast page. You will also find archives of previous episodes and many resources for therapists and non-therapists. We welcome your comments and questions. If you want to support the show, please share the podcast with people who might benefit from it. You could also go to iTunes and leave a 5-star rating. I am your host, Rhonda Borowski, the director of the Feeling Great Therapy Center. We hope you enjoyed this episode. I invite you to join us next time for another episode of the Feeling Good podcast.